All right, let's blast off. Okay. My first day as a subscriber. Do you think if Kamala wins the Dems will codify Roe v. Wade or nah, like the past 51 years? I think you already answered your own question. At 2 p.m., I'm going to have the Blowback Pod boys on. Brendan James and Noah Colwyn will be on the broadcast. You guys know them. You guys love them. They are responsible for some of the best podcast series out there. The Blowback Podcast, of course. And, you know, I'm very excited to host them again. They have a new season that just came out, this time on Cambodia. Really fire. They were on Chop on Monday. Yeah. Kamala unveils more econ policy. Israel gearing to invade Lebanon? Question mark. Khmer Rouge is what we're going to be talking about. Do we have a blast off meme? People yell at Chapel Roan over not endorsing without concessions. Talk about your Halloween ideas, Unc. Yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. I don't think it's a question at this point. Israelis are already circulating a lab of southern Lebanon with Israeli village names. Yeah, I saw that already. That was yesterday. Blast off meme. Bro, that's not even a... That's not... Bomb Levs, that's not a Halloween costume. That's just something I wear regularly. You just strapped on the fucking worm around it. Kamala unveils more econ policy. Israel gearing to invade Lebanon. People yell at Chapel Roan over not endorsing without concessions. Cornell to deport student. Lincoln caught hiding. Israeli war crime report. Noah Colwyn and Brendan James on the show. www.twitch.com/Hasanabi. Okay. Let's do it. Let's blast the freak off. What cracks me up about Chappelle Roan. Am I saying that right? Chapel Roan, not Chappelle. Chapel Roan is that they made a leftist queer a megastar and now are mad that she's leftist and queer. Yeah. You don't have to type www.unc. I think so. Talk about our brother Marcellus Williams. I did yesterday. Quite a bit. All right, here it is. This is the Bomb Left inspired Halloween fit, which I think is really funny because it's not even a fucking Halloween fit. It's just something I wear regularly. But the only addition to this Halloween fit is the worm, which would turn me into, I guess, what's the character? Toji? Yeah. If I get the worm, it's like easy. I could be Toji super easy. I can't believe they executed Marcellus Williams. Barbaric. Welcome to the United States of America. We are a nation that participates in barbarism every single day. This is who we are. This is what we are. We are an inherently violent country with an inherently violent culture, and we are incredibly violent to one another. And a lot of people don't comprehend how violent these structures are until they are also within the crosshairs, until something that they care about is taken from them. Few more days until this arrives, by the way. Oh my God, that's a beautiful emote. I love that. Your photo at the booth came out? Hell yeah. Keza, my man. Just about to play through the MGS series for the first time. Are the two older games necessary to play? Yes. And I would urge you to start with MGS1 because MGS1 might come across as like a little unplayable with how bad the graphics are if you get used to like the older games, like the newer games, sorry. But if you're asking about the old MGS, like I'm talking PlayStation, I'm talking Metal Gear Solid. Like not the Metal Gear series that is like NES games. Like you don't have to play those. But I would say that Metal Gear Solid, the first in the franchise that is on the PlayStation platform, I recommend that for sure. The MGS Volume 1 is getting a massive patch on PC that's going to make it much better. Play the GameCube remaster MGS Twin Snakes instead of the PS1. Bro, when are you not live, lol? MGS1 graphics aren't the issue. It's the very dated control. Still a banger, though, and holds up extremely well. But yeah, Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2 are incredible. Metal Gear Solid 2 holds up very well in every aspect. Metal Gear Solid 3 is the most perfect game in the franchise anyway. Most people will say that it's probably their favorite game. And then 4 and 5 are fine. I mean, they're good. They remastered MGS 1 to 3 on PS3? No. Hassan Piker's looks are like his political takes, overhyped, underwhelming, and definitely not as deep as he thinks they are. He might have the muscles, but even Photoshop can't smooth out that dumb fuck expression. All that time in the gym, and still the best thing about him is when the camera glitches and freezes his face. Thank you. Once again, if you repeat a certain thing, maybe it'll be true eventually. Good luck to you. Crazy cyberbully interaction. Guys, there is no planet in which you can cyberbully as a content watcher the person whose content you are watching. Okay? It is at that point entirely up to the person that is receiving that statement to be allowed to be bullied in that regard. Okay? Like you say lolcows, but again, you can't lolcow someone if they do not lean into it. Like a lot of these people that are like lolcows in general used to have, you know, some careers, right? And then they leaned into it over and over again. They leaned into it over and over again, and inevitably they became like that became their only content. Okay? Like DSP, or what was the guy, Boogie 1488. And if you don't know what a lolcow is, trust me, it's good. It's you're a healthy individual. Don't worry about it. Yeah, this is a funny tweet I saw from Lolo that he resurfaced. I totally agree that Biden-Harris is a transition ticket, and I'm excited to see a progressive ticket in 2024 that listens to us on Medicare for All and the Green New Deal. I said, were you not a Hasanabi head in 2020? Shaking my head. Because it's like, why is he complimenting you? I mean, I think some locals are just genuinely very mentally ill. Yeah. Why is the suit? Is there some real shit going on? Talking about lolcows, guess who's getting smoked like a brisket in the courts? Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think it's shocking to hear Lol overruled have a take like this in 2020. If he was a Hasanabi head back then, he would have known better, is what I'm saying. Okay? This man never responds to my text. No healthcare, 40,000 more troops to Lebanon. Yep. Text Lolo back. I don't even know when he texted me that I didn't respond to. But to be fair, I did literally ask him to fly over and stay with me if he wants to, since he's jobless. I'm a gaming frog, and last night's woke game is the first time I've been glad to see you abandon a playthrough. Yeah. Anyway, the jacket is real fresh. Yeah, the jacket is, I think, my dad's or my brother's. I don't know. But no, You're a Hater Dustborn is good. I didn't enjoy it that much. I'll be honest. It's like the content that we can derive out of it is exclusive to the content that we can derive out of it is exclusively about me like making jokes about how like lame the game is, because the main characters are the most annoying people that you could put together. It's like, but like not so mentally ill that you can even be entertained by how insane they are. They're just like just balanced enough and annoying enough that they're just like a very specific type of queer adult millennial in a leftist polycule from the Tumblr generation. Anyway, let's watch this this absolute banger. Basically captures the essence of Israeli politics in general, which is Iran don't shoot or will shoot, showing American missiles, showing like American fighter jets. I love that. Like for me, it just basically captures the very essence of Israeli politics, because this song comes in the aftermath of Israel blowing up the Iranian fucking embassy compound in Damascus. Okay. which is a direct violation of Iranian sovereignty. And right before the retaliation is supposed to occur, the expected retaliation that is supposed to occur from Iran, that was, I would say, negotiated at that point. They're like, don't do it because we're so spiritually fucked up with Israel, bro. I'm sorry. It's like Jewish people across the board. If you want to understand how like Israel is not in any way, shape, or form representative of Jewish culture, Judaism as a whole, like Jewish people as a whole, just look to the art. Okay? Look to the art. Look to the long history of Jewish art, okay? Jews making art in general, and then look to the type of art that comes out of Israel. It is just like mind-boggling to me. It is insane. It is crazy, okay? That's it.
Don't shoot. Don't shoot.
This was fire. This was fire. Y'all are just jealous, dude. Y'all are just jealous of the... Y'all are just jealous. Jealousy's not a good look on you, sweetie. Anyway, has anyone answered it in the U.S. or Israel? At what point are countries allowed defending themselves versus Israel, or is it always just never? Yeah, the answer is it's never. The answer is never. Recent development. I was talking to an ultra-Zionist who has defended Israel every step of the way over the past year, and I sent them that New York Times investigation showing IAVA killing an entire mourning family in the middle of the street with a white flag. War crime, by the way. And they said, you have to fight fire with fire. War is nasty and ugly. Okay, so cool. You're just a terrorist then? The answer is yes. At a certain point, you just got to give up. I'm telling you. Okay? You just got to give up. When people go, if Israel used the nuke, would the U.S. still support it? The answer is something that you don't want to know. Okay, I don't want to give you an answer to that, but the answer is not going to make you happy. Okay. All things considered, looking at what Israel has been able to get away with, the answer is absolutely. Okay, absolutely, because guess what? Israel has used 5 nuclear arms worth of munitions on Gaza over the course of the past 12 months. And America has basically given them more. Not a peep. Pure defense. And not only pure defense, but now Israel is doing pure offense. Okay? Now Israel's doing pure offense in Lebanon. It started with a terror attack. Okay, and it continued with gearing up for full-blown ground invasion, which is crazy because every single person keeps saying there is no way Israel can pull this shit off. Okay, it doesn't make sense. They've lost to Hezbollah before. This morning, I was listening to the New York Times Daily, and they were talking about how Hezbollah was born out of the desire to purge the Israeli invasion in Lebanon. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. At least they're offering historical context. This is strange. This is new. This is unique. Very cool. And then they moved into like current day. And they kept talking about like how Hezbollah has tunnels inside of Lebanon. And I was thinking to myself, it's like, dog, I can't believe you're describing these people, this like militant group, this resistance group, okay? And you're talking about their military capabilities that are purely defensive, okay? Like tunnel systems that are purely defensive in a whole ass sovereign nation. Can you, it's like looking at American nuclear missile silos inside of the United States or any number of different like protective measures that we have and talking about it like it's a bad thing, okay? Like, yeah, dude, that's a whole ass different country. Why do they have an entire tunnel system underneath their whole ass sovereign nation? I wonder why. Yeah, it's like complaining that the Pentagon has a fucking basement. Like, what are you talking about? It is their country. It's a different country. I can't stress this enough. Like, with Gaza, there is legalese, right? There is like this legal gray area that Israel has been able to define where they're like occupiers, but also not really, kind of. See, they have their own governance or whatever the fuck. But like with Lebanon, and that stuff is already bullshit, right? Like Israel's justifications to make it seem like on a good day that they're not a belligerent occupier over Gaza is bullshit. But having said that, at least like there is a legal gray area there, kind of, right? Even though it's utterly illegal, but at least like you can kind of present an argument there. But there is no argument when you are trying to contextualize Lebanese militias, okay? Like the country of Lebanon as having done something wrong for building defense systems against potential invasion. It doesn't have to be from Israel, like from anywhere, really. That is what countries do. What do you think countries do? Countries are supposed to have defenses. It makes no sense that they are talking about this issue as though it's just so fucked up for Hezbollah to have mounted any kind of defensive posture against their southern neighbor that has literally invaded them before and occupied them before. Yeah, U.S. and Israel also have underground command bunkers and ammo depots. Duh, no shit. Of course they do. And there is no world where you're like, that's a bad thing, okay? Like when we have it, it's good. That's it. The only thing you need to understand about this is that if we have it or if Israel has it, it's good. But if anyone that Israel declares to be an enemy, it doesn't matter. It's bad, okay? If tomorrow Israel declared France an enemy of Israel, we would have the same fucking analysis. We'd be like, no, dog, sorry, France. You really fucked up with your anti-Semitic ass defensive posture against Israel. That's anti-Semitic. You need to get wiped off the map. Excuse me, please. Does Lebanon have a right to defend itself? The answer is no. Under international law, the answer is yes. Under American law, the answer is no. No country that Israel wants to fucking fight against, no country that Israel has decided it is going to take action against is a country that is a sovereign nation with its own territorial interests, with its own civilians, with its own citizens, with its own defensive posture. You cannot defend yourself, okay? If Israel wants to blow you up, you have to sit there and take it and then say thank you so much. Anyway, here, U.S. officials, this is where we're going to start, and then we're going to get into Lebanon, and then we'll talk more about, like, obviously the internal dynamic here. Before we get the blowback boys on.
Live with BBC News.
Before we get to that though, here. So obviously Israel did an attack of terror on Lebanese soil. They exploded booby-trapped civilian communications devices. The Western media covered it as though it was a profound, incredible feat of impressive espionage. Leon Panetta, the former CIA director, was like, nah, it's terrorism. UN human rights advocates said, nah, it's terrorism. It's a war crime. This is a war crime. And it's actually opening up the door to like severe problems for everyone else. Okay. But hey, Israel got that. You know what I mean? John Fetterman's on board. Americans that love only reading the news and never really exercising a single shred of critical thinking. They loved it. So who cares what other people think? Reddit liked it. So it's not an act of terror. Also, here's the U.S. State Department.
The story from last week. Is it the Pentagon's view that it's acceptable under the laws of war to booby-trap civilian objects and place them amongst civilian populations? Is that acceptable for any nation to do?
That's something that, without commenting on an operation that the U.S. military had no involvement in, it's hard for me to get into the hypotheticals. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to try and go down and explain.
Because if you were a lawyer, you would say, of course it's not acceptable. It is a war crime. Okay? It's a war crime. It's simple. Okay? You're not a lawyer. Let's refer to the lawyers. Okay, lawyers said it's a war crime. Moving on. And also, you don't, the reason why people have to find hypotheticals in a situation that actually happened. I can't stress this enough. This is a real thing that already occurred. Israel did it, okay, in Lebanon. The reason why we have to resort to hypotheticals is because when Israel does it, you say it's okay. So what if someone else did it to us or to Israel or to our European allies? People that we do think are human beings. What if someone did that? Well, in that circumstance, I think you would all understand. If Russia did it, you'd be like, "Oh, war crime alert, war crime alert." They're at it again.
legalese from here. So I just can't comment further on that operation. Yeah.
U.S., though, affecting supply chains or intercepting supply chains in order to place explosive items within normal consumer objects, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on a hypothetical or an operation that we had no part of. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, the deadly pager operation in Lebanon was like the first strike. And then they went back to, doing Israel shit, famous Israel shit, which is carpet bombing villages, carpet bombing towns, and putting out shitty CGI to be like, this is why we're going to carpet bomb your villages. Now, they're not doing it to a territory that they are the belligerent occupier of, but which is already illegal, and they don't have a right to defend themselves in that way. But now they're also doing it to a whole-ass, sovereign-ass nation, the nation of Lebanon. This is not Gaza anymore, but if you were to look at the media and the way that they're covering it, you might have thought, oh, it is the Gaza. This is Gaza 2.0. Hezbollah is Hamas. We went from Hamas to Hezbollah. Let's take a look at how BBC is covering the Israeli army chief telling troops Lebanon strikes are preparing ground for attack.
I'm Anna Foster here in Beirut as fears continue to grow of a...
Can you let me know what the argument is for Lebanon self-defense when the uninitiated people tell Lebanon is the one who started this retaliation support for Gaza? The Hezbollah initiatives in southern Lebanon and in northern Israel have been a constant tit for tat, okay? Pre-October 7 and certainly post-October 7. And even in that tit for tat, Israel is responsible for 70 or 80% of the munitions being deployed. Israel is responsible for 80% of all rockets fired in the back and forth tit for tat. Okay? Israel has shown every regional actor, everyone that has eyes to see, that has a brain cell to understand these issues, that they will never back down if you ask them gently. Okay? This is after 78 years of brutal occupation and the maintenance of an apartheid. So, of course, regional actors are like, okay, well, we are going to make this as costly as possible for you. We know you have an Iron Dome. We know that you'll be able to intercept most of these missiles, but they're very costly. Okay? They're very costly for you. It's costly for you to have 20,000 civilians evacuate the northern territories that you are currently occupying. It's going to be costly for you to use Tamir interceptor missiles. Okay? It's a game of math at that point. And now the Iron Dome has started not working. When that starts occurring and missiles start hitting Tel Aviv, for example, when that happens, then inevitably more and more people are going to leave Israel. They are no longer going to feel safe in Israel. They're going to want to leave Israel and go to America or Western nations or any other country for that matter. This presents a genuine threat to the Zionist project of establishing a Jewish ethno-state in the area. Okay? If you no longer can be the startup nation, if you no longer can be the nation that is beautiful, that made the desert bloom, all of a sudden, people are going to be, you're not going to have academics, okay? You're not going to have artists, which you didn't really have a lot to begin with. Holy fuck. The Jews are God's people, you dumb fucks. I unbanned this person specifically because I wanted to let him chirp, okay? GG, Jewish people are God's people. God will defend his people. Jesus will come back, and when he does, holy. Fuck Hamas. This dude needs to crawl back under his rock and die. God has Israel's back. Nuff said. Fuck that. Beetlejuice banned him. I unbanned him because I knew he was going to come out with some incredible stuff. He said, the Jews are God's people, dumb fucks. Love that. Thank you. Is it a hardware issue? Is the dome bugged? Is it outdated? How is the dome failing exactly? I mean, what do you mean, how is the dome failing? It's being overwhelmed. There is at the end of the day, there is a finite amount of missiles that you can utilize. The Iron Dome is not actually a dome. Okay? The Iron Dome is a surface-to-air missile system. Okay? Which means you're launching missiles at the missiles that are coming in, oftentimes 2 at a time. as a matter of fact. Anyway, let's get
further escalation in the conflict here in the Middle East. We've heard just in the last hour the chief of Israel's defense forces speaking to soldiers on the northern border, telling them to prepare for a ground invasion into southern Lebanon. And we also heard the UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer talking about that and other world conflicts and crises at the UN in New York. Of course, countries from around the world meeting for the General Assembly. And our Sumi Somaskanda is there and has been following developments over the last few days. And Sumi, when you hear the calls there for de-escalation,
I think having Israel set up troops for a ground invasion of a whole ass sovereign nation after 12 months of conducting its genocidal campaign in a territory that it illegally occupied and opening up a new front with America's backing, while simultaneously the UN is just like, listening to Joe Biden talk about how, I did NATO. Like, what a beautiful juxtaposition right here, What a perfect demonstration of how feckless and how powerless these institutions are, and how little they are actually doing their primary duty, which is not to necessarily uphold international law and rules, right? But more so to, at the very least, present it as though there is some semblance of international rule-based order. They're failing on the PR front, just like the American peer failed on the PR front. That is what this is. The primary function of the UN is to at least make it seem as though Western nations are interested in international collaboration and uphold a certain set of standards. Okay? But they're not doing that. They're even failing on the PR front.
But here in the Middle East, the messages, the sounds, the noise and the fury is very different. Are they expecting at the UN General Assembly to have an impact on what's happening here?
Anna, that really is the most striking difference that I'm seeing right now. These tones of escalation that you're witnessing on the ground there in Lebanon, so different to these calls for de-escalation, for a ceasefire, as we've now heard from the British Prime Minister. And there's
the Iron Dome has never been tested and was largely sold on marketing and is a farce. I'll be shocked if Israel's willing to put it on to the test in fear of exposing the emperor as having no clothes. What are you talking about? The Iron Dome absolutely gets tested. It's just only been tested on fucking like bathtub rockets and shit, and also the Hezbollah rockets that are not bathtub rockets, but it definitely has been tested. There are statistics for its level of success in Israel. The reason why Israel does not let anyone else have the Iron Dome is specifically because they're worried that if Ukraine, for example, got the Iron Dome, well, two reasons. One, because Israel and Russia have obvious partnerships and have consistently maintained like decent relationships, regardless of what Vladimir Putin says or regardless of what Benjamin Netanyahu says. That's one aspect of this conversation. The other aspect of this conversation is that Benjamin Netanyahu refused Ukraine getting an Iron Dome. And the reason why they didn't want to give Ukraine an Iron Dome is because they were worried that if Russia were to overtake and overwhelm Ukraine, at least this was their outward reasoning, that Russia would have access to the Iron Dome and would give it to Iran. And the reality is, ultimately, Iron Dome is a phenomenal piece of tech. Okay, it is. It has done a really good job of thwarting attacks from Hamas and Hezbollah and anyone else for that matter, except now it is actually being penetrated. And not only is it being penetrated by like loiter munitions, it's being penetrated by obviously hypersonic missiles, which the Houthis apparently have, which is crazy. Obviously, nothing is impossible to penetrate when you have, when you have enough of a will. This is a similar situation to Republicans wanting to invade Mexico to fight the cartels. I'm saying penetrate. How about you penetrate the top of the hour ad break by subscribing? Okay.
certainly is an optimism because you do have world leaders gathered here.
That's right. 3-minute ad break is upon us. 420. Blaze it for September or for free with a Twitch Prime to avoid it. Or you can get gifted to subbers a 3-minute ad break now. Mate Feed Art, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Allowing 10 people to also no longer see ads at the top of the hour. IDF boasted an interception rate above 85%. Yeah.
Here, the sense that President Biden, the British Prime Minister, of course, Sir Keir Starmer, And world leaders gathered here are the ones who, at least on the sidelines of the summit, could possibly move forward some diplomatic action. You know, we talked to the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations yesterday, and we saw him again today, and we know that there is this United Nations Security Council meeting taking place this afternoon, particularly on the conflict, on the escalating situation in Lebanon. Remember, it was France that called for this meeting. Well, the Israeli ambassador told us he will be going to that UN Security Council meeting, and he had told us that he wants to make sure that they understand that the aggressor here is Iran. So, of course, they are thinking about civilians, he told me, as the rest of the world is, as we are seeing these calls for a ceasefire, and that is important to the Israelis. But they want it to be clear at this UN Security Council meeting that Iran and Hezbollah are the aggressors.
I'm from Lebanon, and I know friends whose homes and villages have been bombed, and guess what? There were no missiles there. How does the world fall for the human shield lie? They're just justifying murdering civilians. The 3D renders look like obvious bullshit. My friend, if you're Lebanese, you already know this reality, but like, they just don't think you're a human being. That's it. It's the sad state of affairs, but it is what it is. In the Western world, people do not think you're a real human being whose life is worth anything. I hate to say it, but it is true. If you are Muslim, if you are Arab, if you happen to live in a country that has Muslims or Arabs as a significant percentage of its population, if you're a country that is in the crosshairs of Israel or America, your lives are not worthy, okay? There are certain Muslim vassal states that also take priority over others, Saudi Arabia, UAE. These are countries, especially Gulf nations, that also obviously get to, you know, as long as they're like killing, other enemies of America, enemies of the state, they get to do whatever they want to as well. Or sometimes maybe you can use an attack from a certain country's nationals as a justification for invading the Middle East. Then it's also fine, you know, 9/11, Saudi Arabia. There's just no amount of cruelty and evil that the American state will not abide by as long as it subscribes to their material interests, their material needs, as long as it fucking creates a just cause for additional weapons contracts and death and destruction of the third world, extraction of natural resources from places like Iraq, for example. They will always abide by it. They don't give a shit.
Here. It would be very interesting to see what might come out of that, Anna, because as you said, the situation is heating up on the ground with this possibility of a ground.
The entire system, Iron Dome is the name for the short range and very precise part of the Israeli air defense system. The whole system includes Yahalom and David String. You have Arrow 1, Arrow 2 as well. Iron Dome is great for short range defense for a very particular direction, meaning against Hamas rockets from Gaza. Otherwise, David Sling is the main long-range system. Yes. But the entirety of the Israeli surface-to-air counter missile system has failed. It has failed since October 7. And that presents a unique problem for Israel. Israel must maintain this veneer of security so that it can continue presenting itself as like a Western adjacent nation in the middle of the Middle East. If it cannot do that, then it's not going to have artists and academics travel to Israel, okay? It also has to maintain itself as a moral nation, an important democracy, despite the fact that it's obviously not, considering that it is a fucking apartheid state doing a genocide. There's just, they will become a social pariah. They have become a social pariah. More and more people will be like, I'm never going to go to Israel. And that is also going to create more pressure. This is how apartheid South Africa perished. Okay? Yeah, when you lose Radiohead, that's when you're completely gone, you know?
Incursion. Everyone we've been speaking to here, including the Swedish foreign minister who I just spoke to, she said, we are speaking to all of our allies to underline the point that we must find a diplomatic solution so that civilians in Lebanon can return to their homes as well as in Israel. But at the moment, as things are so hot on the ground, it looks like a very steep hill to climb, doesn't it?
Yeah, and as you've been reflecting yourself, Sumi, on BBC News over the last couple of days as well, not just the Middle East that's on the table there. We heard, of course, President Zelensky speaking earlier as well. There are other crises, other conflicts that need the world's attention too.
Absolutely. So President Zelensky delivering his address to the UN earlier.
I've seen more impacts in Israel in the last 2 days than the entire last year. Like dozens and dozens of sites have been hit, but the media ignores it, which surprises me because it plays into the whole victim complex thing. No. The media has ignored the Ansar Allah missile striking at Tel Aviv as well. There's a very important reason for that. That is because if Israeli society no longer feels comfortable inside of the boundaries of Israel, they will change their attitude towards how Israel presents itself as a consistent aggressor against all of its enemies that are worthy of death and destruction. You cannot disrupt the veneer of security. This is why October 7 was so significant. Okay? Because October 7 is a military operation from a bunch of ascetic resistance groups that were able to pull it together, was a genuinely like psyche breaking moment for Israeli society. IDF's Arabic spokesman releases a video mocking refugees from southern Lebanon, showing him watching videos of them fleeing on his phone, calls them ignorant of Hezbollah's true nature, and says they are now crawling towards an unknown fate. The media ignores it because all you seek is Western information. Israel will never be a pariah state as long as the UK and US continues to glaze them. That's not true. Israel already has become a pariah state, and Israel was a pariah state in the third world already, but it's especially now becoming a pariah state in the Western hemisphere, which is far more consequential. When people start going, you're from Israel? That's weird. It's over, okay? The project has completely collapsed. Do you understand? Doesn't matter how hard fucking the US and the UK glaze it. Doesn't matter how hard fucking mainstream media tries to present this image. I'm telling you right now, when someone goes, I don't know about that, the moment that normies go, wait, you're from Israel, but they're doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff, aren't they? The moment that happens, you have become officially a fucking pariah state, okay? This is exactly what happened with apartheid South Africa. There is no way out of that situation. And what Israel has done is basically use this as the last opportunity they have to do as much land grabs as possible, as many land grabs as possible. And that is only worsening the standing that Israel has in Western society, which is very important. Okay, like you can't. This is anti-Semitism. Your way out of that problem. You just can't. You can't do that. People don't give a shit. People will literally just directly respond to that by being anti-Semitic, which is the secondary damaging aspect of Israel tying itself so closely to Judaism in a false way to defend itself. Like, people don't give a shit. They're like, all right, well, I saw blown up people. I don't give a fuck. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm anti-Semitic then. It will be the response and has been the response, as a matter of fact. This makes it doubly awful. When I think of Israel now, I think of the IDF soldiers on their days off wearing those acid-washed denim capris, and they all have creeping PTSD from the slaughter they have done. At the loudest David Guetta music cannot drown it out at night. Like, as long as Israel continues its bloody conquest, it's not going to go away. Like, people are still going to be further and further more grossed out by it. And you can't, like, hide the truth. You can't hide the truth by just being like, yeah, it's now illegal to be mean to Israel, okay? Which is precisely what American college campuses are trying to do right now. It's precisely what Dana Nessel did in Michigan. It's what Cornell is doing with the PhD grad student that they're literally deporting from the country, the Muslim grad student. Yeah, like you getting called anti-Semite of the week, all you could do was throw your hands up and say, fine, I'm anti-Semitic then. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And like that would have worked as a very successful way to separate who I am and my commentary from those who want to hear it, okay? 5 years ago, that would have been genuinely a successful message, okay? In terms of like immediately stopping someone and chastising them dead in their fucking tracks. It worked against Jeremy Corbyn, okay? 5 years into the future, when everyone understands like organizations like stopantisemitism.org that get like grants from the Israeli Knesset, by the way, to operate in this way in the United States of America, nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit. Like, it's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous to be like, wow, you're really anti-Semitic for saying that Israel's an apartheid state, which is what the Human Rights Watch has openly declared. Amnesty International has openly declared. There's like 18 fucking NGOs, including Israeli human rights groups, that have recognized the reality and have openly declared it as such because it is the truth. The ICJ has recognized it. The ICJ a couple months back straight up said Israel is currently unjustifiably occupying Palestinian territories and they must immediately remove themselves from both the West Bank and Gaza. You don't talk about it, you don't cover it in the Western news, but that is the reality. And when that is the reality, someone like myself now will get hit with cynical anti-Semitism allegations, but I could just turn around and point to those things that people do care about, that people do still believe, that still have a shred of credibility, especially amongst normies. It's ridiculous. And even people that don't know, even people that aren't aware of these institutions, these NGOs or whatever, they still see like blown up babies and go, oh, that's a little gross. Maybe that's a bridge too far.
Earlier today, that got, of course, plenty of attention. He spoke specifically about what he said was a renewed Russian threat on nuclear facilities in Ukraine. And his point there was really to reach out to delegates here at the United Nations to say this is not a conflict that just affects Ukraine and my country, but rather could soon be something that is brought to the rest of Europe and to the rest of the world as well. And he specifically pointed to the global south, to Brazil, to China, and said that any alternate peace plans that are presented should not be heeded because any peace plan must be a just peace that goes through Ukraine. So certainly that has been a big topic of conversation here today. We know that President Zelensky is headed to the White House on Thursday to present his plan for victory to President Biden there, and we'll see what developments happen there. But I have to say, Anna, certainly the escalation in Lebanon is the topic that is dominating the agenda. Again, we'll be following that UN Security Council meeting taking place a little bit later today.
Our chief foreign correspondent Ian.
Thousands flee as Israel warns of more strikes against Hezbollah. Interesting.
Panel is on the scene in Beirut with the latest on the new attacks overnight. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, Robin. I think deeply worrying signs that this conflict risked spiraling out of control. The Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah launching a surface-to-surface missile towards Tel Aviv this morning. According to Israel, this is the first time ever that they've done this.
This morning, Israel intercepting a deadly Hezbollah missile. The militants say it was trying to attack Mossad HQ after that deadly pager attack. But Israel says it was heading towards civilian areas of Tel Aviv. It's the first time they've ever attacked the city and is another major escalation. And overnight, a massive explosion in Jia, south of Beirut. CCTV footage showing the strike as Israel warns more are being prepared. As the two warring sides ramp up their attacks, hundreds of thousands of families now internally displaced in just 3 days. We visited this school here in Beirut. It was to open for the new semester today. Instead, it's a shelter, offering beds and aid to the thousands fleeing the south. One family telling us they travelled for nearly 20 hours to get to safety. Two parents and their 5 children, their youngest, baby Mohammed, just 8 months old. And Afra tells us her priority over the last 24 hours was the safety of her kids. She describes her family's trek to safety as difficult and filled with destruction. The death toll across Lebanon rising to more than 550, with more than 1,800 injured, not just fighters, but women and children too. Hezbollah firing back Tuesday, launching at least 13 attacks on Israel.
Well, a senior US official telling us that Hezbollah is moving long-range missiles cross-border raids.
I love when they say spiraling out of control when it has basically never been in Palestinian or Arab control and wholly in the control of the West. It's just like spiraling out of our control. I mean, it's true. 60% of the 2006 war in 2 days. Yep.
I mean, the US and others have been working overtime to try and de-escalate the situation.
So we're going to cover, obviously, Anthony Blinken. I covered the story yesterday. ProPublica came out with a report that showed that U.S. aid and other State Department agencies had collected obvious data that you and I are very familiar with because we follow this conflict closely, that showed Israel directly in violation of international human rights in terms of refusing to let in food and humanitarian aid into the area that they were mercilessly bombing. Now, this is a direct violation of international human rights. And if you do that, then America can't give you weapons. It is illegal for the United States of America to consistently offer you weapons if you are violating human rights. Okay? Denying humanitarian aid to a civilian population is that violation. Okay? And it seems that Anthony Blinken was very aware of this human rights violation, and he chose to lie. Doors open. Yes, please. Thank you. Okay. Wait 1 second. Anyway, as we were talking about, Anthony Blinken had full knowledge of this and yet still turned around and refused to acknowledge it, because he knew that if he acknowledged it, then he would not be able to send unlimited, unrestricted weapons to Israel. And he lied time and time again openly. This puts him in criminal territory, for the record. Okay? And I'm not just saying that as like, I don't know type. Like, this isn't just like a random activist Greenpeace type fucking attitude. This is like direct war crimes and key omissions of war crimes from another war criminal supporting a country doing war crimes. It is against American law. Okay? This is Oliver North shit. I mean, obviously, this is Iran-Contra type shit. Not that it matters, because look at what happened to Oliver North. Anyway.
We're joined by Secretary of State Antony Blinken in town for the United Nations General Assembly. Mr. Secretary, good morning to you. Thank you very much for being here. Boy, there's only so many times you can mention escalating tensions and risks of an all-out war before it becomes cliche, but things are definitely not going in the right direction. And I think there's a philosophy question here for the U.S. to answer.
A philosophy question. By the way, obviously, our media apparatus is unsurprisingly not doing a very good job addressing this. Okay?
Do you end all of this violence in the Middle East by putting pressure on Israel to stop on both fronts, or do you empower Israel to finish the job?
Look, what we've seen since the horrific attacks on October 7th.
By the way, that's a direct Trump line. Something to think about. Anyway, I'm going to crack open a cold one here. Limited edition Oreo Zero Sugar Coca-Cola Creations Fizzy Cookie flavored. Okay? Limited time. As I listen to the Butcher Blinken himself, who loves to just keep on rocking in the free world, you know? Let me tell you, okay? It's not a fucking hashtag ad. Definitely not. I tried it last night. It was kind of ass, okay? I gave a review on TikTok, but I'm doing it again. Ugh. The Coke flavored Oreos are super bad. Hope the Oreo Coke is better. There's Coke flavored Oreos. Why are brands collaborating like this? This is the other reason why you don't have fucking healthcare, dog. It just doesn't taste that good. The comments on your TikTok were so funny. They were trying to cancel you for drinking it. Yes, dude. Ultimately, it does not matter. Just keep your fucking head down and keep advocating to free Palestine, okay? Who gives a shit that like a bunch of newcomers who have their heart in the right place, but their mind in a million different directions, fucking chirping. I don't care. The aftertaste is not something that I like. Both those brands are boycotted. No, they're not. They are not on the official BDS boycott list. Stop. Why is this community so annoying? Because a lot of people mistake being leftist as being annoying, and the more annoying you are, the more leftist you are. Thanks, Hassan. You just killed 10 kids? Yeah. I saved 10 kids, and then I killed 10 kids. I'm balancing it out. Are we seriously trying to do the I'm woke with it now shit in the chat? Yes. I mean, people do that all the time. This is one of the few communities online. This is one of the few communities online that is on the left that absolutely doesn't pay any mind to that kind of shit. And I try to always steer people in the best direction possible, you know? But yeah, there are plenty of spaces where people don't do that, and it's fine. I don't really care. It ultimately doesn't matter. I mean, the amount of people, even on that like Chapel Roan, Hassan Piker like tweet that got a shit ton of likes, the QRTs were filled to the brim with like free Palestine types who were upset at me over my opinion on Venezuela and Cuba, upset at me for not being sufficiently radical enough, upset at me for being too radical. it doesn't matter. Okay? Just fucking keep saying, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue doing what I do. I don't really care about the opinions of newcomers. It hasn't changed my direction. It has not changed my mind even a little bit over the past decade, and it will not change my mind in the foreseeable future. Okay? Does it upset me to see people so easily duped? Yeah, a little bit. There is no need for, COINTELPRO or anything like that. There's no need for any kind of like federal law enforcement to try and engage in like disruptive behavior, because the left's organizational tools are already withered away entirely, and we kind of do it to ourselves anyway. Let's continue.
Are periods when we've had a real risk of escalation, a real risk of something turning into a full-blown war, including in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah. And through diplomacy, through deterrence, we've managed to avert that in the days immediately following October 7th. More recently in April. We're focused right now on making sure that we can...
Chappell's BFF follows you on IG. You should try and get her on stream. I don't know who Chappell's BFF is, but if that's like an actual route that I can take, then I would 100%. The left here is so focused on individualistic virtues versus consistent solidarity. Yeah.
De-escalate, avoid a full-scale war. But, Tony, Israel's got a legitimate problem here. Starting on October 8th, Hezbollah in the north from southern Lebanon started lobbing rockets and missiles into Israel. People living in northern Israel had to flee their homes, about 70,000. And Israel, understandably, legitimately, wants a secure environment so people can return home. The best way to get that is through diplomacy, an agreement to pull back forces, allow people to return home in northern Israel. Also, many Lebanese in southern Lebanon forced from their homes. We want to get people back home. The best way to do that is not war, it's diplomacy.
So Hezbollah went to their weapon systems. Hezbollah began firing into Israel after October 7th in allyship with Hamas and the people in Gaza. Where does ceasefire talks stand? Because if that is their motivation there on the Hezbollah side, that's the key to making them pull back and stop.
That would certainly be one of the keys. It would be an ideal key because it would end the horrific situation in Gaza, horrific for the hostages, horrific for so many men, women, and children who've been caught in this crossfire of Hamas's making. We've been working on this ceasefire deal for a while. We have an agreement, a piece of paper that's got 18 paragraphs. 15 of them are agreed. The last 3 continue to need some work. The problem we have right now is that Hamas hasn't been engaging on it for the last couple of weeks.
Oh my God. Oh, this conversation should be, the centerpiece of this conversation should be, hey, if you're working tirelessly for a ceasefire, why haven't you really, like, are there no levers that you can pull or push on in terms of like motivating Israel to do the thing that you want them to do? If you don't want Israel to escalate the conflict into Lebanon, is there, I don't know, something that you could do that you haven't done so far? If our journalists weren't pure stenographers / mouthpieces for the Israeli government, pretty much, or at least the State Department, whose goals currently are directly lined up with Israel's deadly conquest in the region, they would ask these questions. They would say, hey, for the past 12 months at this point, America has consistently talked about how upset they are with the way Israel is conducting itself and has regularly demanded Israel to restrain itself. Israel has not. Seemingly, Israel is also, according to this report in front of us from ProPublica, was violating human rights, things that we have reported on mainstream media as well, in terms of like denying humanitarian aid to a civilian population that is mercilessly bombing, slowly but surely changing the dynamic between what is considered a safe zone, which is also another violation of international human rights law, and bombing humanitarian safe zones, killing more UN workers and more humanitarian aid workers than ISIS and Al-Qaeda combined over the course of the past 11 to 12 months, including Western American citizens, and not just like American citizens who have Palestinian citizenship as well, like American citizens with no other citizenship, British citizens, Australian citizens. And at no point has Israel ever seemingly shown that they would demonstrate restraint at all. So which is it? Are you the worst politician? Are you the worst statesman of all time? Are you a fucking idiot? Or are you purely evil? And you like that Israel is doing these things? Bro, they can just pull a lever to stop it. The United States aligns with realism, but the narrative they decide to present is that we have liberal motivations and Palestine bad. Yeah, I think it's straight up beyond like material needs at this point. I think it goes into ideological territory for a lot of these allegiances. Genuinely. Like, I know I talk a big game about the material necessity for America's like undying loyalty to Israel because it's a military base planted firmly in the middle of a resource-rich region, for sure. That is the primary motivator for America. But I think that the secondary reason is it's not AIPAC. For those of you saying it's AIPAC, AIPAC is just one aspect of this. I think the scarier reason for our endless amount of support for Israel is an ideological commitment, a genuine ideological commitment, okay? Paired up with America's power at the global stage diminishing, okay, where Israel is seen as the only reliable country that has endless loyalty back to the United States of America, because Israel could not exist without the United States of America in a way that Egypt could, right? Egypt takes a shit ton of money from the United States of America, but Egypt could technically go somewhere else. Historically, they have, right? So I think that this is the last bastion, like the last ride or die ally that America can maintain in the area that isn't filled to the brim with Muslims, a Muslim population that could technically overthrow its American puppet government, for example. Egypt, once again, comes to mind. So for that reason, I think, like Saudi Arabia, great example, very important partner for American dominance in the region. Still, Muslim nation, literally did 9/11 and has in the past, even in its monarchy structure, actually went against America's wishes and still continues to go against America's best interest in terms of like how it moves with OPEC plus. Israel does not have that. Israel will do espionage to the American State Department from time to time. Israel will kill American troops from time to time. But ultimately, I think the allegiance between Israel and America is ideological, but also tighter than all these other countries. Because I think in some ways there is genuinely this fear. I think about this all the time. I literally nonstop think about this because it just seems so stupid. It seems so stupid from the perspective of maintaining American dominance to continue on this double suicide pact with Israel. Like, what could be the motivator? What could be the reason? And I think it is because I think it is partially a direct consequence of like America recognizing its power, both soft power and hard power, waning around the planet. And this is like their last real fucking ride or die ally. So they have to let them do whatever the fuck they want to do. Hey, I'm from Iran. They're not just escalating the war in Lebanon. It seems like they're looking for another 9/11 to justify attacking Iran by Trump terror attempt bullshit. Yes, this is something that I've talked about yesterday as well. But at what point does Israel cost more than it's worth? Yes, it's a military base in a U.S. state, but its base is worth maintaining through all of this. I think that that is the calculation that they have in front of them right now, which is that it's gone past the point of being worth it, but it doesn't matter. They're too invested. It's a sunk cost.
And Sinwar, its leader, has been talking about an endless war of attrition.
Oh, that's the other aspect of it too. I think there is a lot of like white supremacist, Islamophobic racism at play as well. Israel's the head of the spear of Western civilization, whiteness against Muslim terror. I think that definitely plays a role as well. At least ideologically in the minds and hearts of a lot of these people in positions of power. You have to remember, a lot of these people that cynically deploy these narratives when they're trying to justify the war on terror, for example, they do believe it. Some of these people do believe it. It's kind of like the Trump phenomenon when we talk about like Trump and how the Republican Party was celebrating the Tim Walz choice because they were like, he's so radical. Everyone's going to hate him. You guys really fucked up by doing this. It was a little bit wish casting on their part, but it was also partially something that they truly believed. they do truly believe that, like, America would consider Tim Walz to be far too fucking radical. Obviously, that didn't work, and it didn't happen, even though the Harris camp still basically backpocketed Tim Walz for some weird fucking reason, because they just want to lose, I guess. But sometimes it's about the symbol and not the practicality. The U.S. doesn't need Cuba, but allowing them to thrive would be costly to maintaining power over the rest of the global South kind of beat. Yeah, it's kind of like the execution. In some ways, it's kind of like the execution of the Missouri state-sanctioned execution of Marcellus Williams, right? Like, he's innocent. All signs point to it. And yet, he was still executed last night at 6:10 p.m. Missouri time. Why? Why was he still executed when everybody understood that he was not guilty of the crime that that the state claimed he committed? Even the people, the prosecutor's office was maintaining his innocence, saying that this is wrong. Why did they do it? Partially to uphold white supremacy, and partially because if you cave and capitulate to the demands being made by the public, then all of a sudden they're going to be like, well, we got a W here. They're going to ask for more. They're going to start analyzing the death sentences of every single person. We know, as a matter of fact, that at least 4%, at minimum, the most conservative estimation, at minimum, 4% of people executed by the state are completely innocent, like exonerated. Okay? Exonerated after death, usually, or even before, but they still continue the execution. Once you start realizing that the state is, like, you know, killing a bunch of people that it knows is innocent, then you have a very different analysis on the death penalty. And if you know and then a lot of people start going, wait, I don't want this. What the fuck? And by the way, for the record, anti-death penalty in a country as draconian as the United States of America, for the first time in its history, one of the only instances, is a more popular position than being pro-death penalty. Think about that. For the first time, I believe, in years, in the United States of America, the majority public opinion is anti-death penalty, which is crazy to think about, because for the Europeans who are watching right now, Americans are really fucking aggressive in terms of how to punish criminals. If you didn't know that, Americans are unique in the Western world in comparison to our OECD nations in the way that we view the death penalty. So let's continue.
Now, if he really cares about the Palestinian people, he'd bring this agreement over the finish line.
Mr. Secretary, do you believe that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu really wants a ceasefire?
If we're talking about Gaza, as I said, I think hard decisions remain to be made by Israel. But the problem right now, in terms of bringing this across the finish line, is Hamas. Its refusal to engage in a meaningful way. We've been at this.
Yeah, Hamas is refusing to engage in a meaningful way with the country that executed the principal negotiator, which once again we just kind of forgot about. I love when we just like memory hole so much of the awful things that Israel has done throughout this entire fucking process. And it's also directly a consequence of the guys that are supposed to be asking these questions. Like, what do you mean Hamas is refusal to engage in a meaningful way? Like, sure, okay, they're a designated terror organization. That's one thing. But also Israel executed their principal negotiator in violation of the sovereignty of a separate state, Iran, a state that you have said you do not want Israel to go to direct conflict with.
In recent weeks, again, trying to get these
So in
last
that part,
things
do you
closed
put blame on Israeli Prime Minister
What we're
Netanyahu?
seeing is this. I don't think this is a question really anymore of the substance of the agreement, because it's very close. It is a question of political will. In the first instance, that political will needs to be demonstrated by Hamas. We haven't seen it the last couple of weeks. Israel would have some hard decisions to make to bring this to a close, but we've got to see if Hamas is actually serious.
Mr. Secretary, ProPublica has determined that 2 agencies found that Israel is deliberately stopping humanitarian aid from getting to civilians. And as you well know, the U.S. government says that it has to restrict supplying weapons to a country that does this type of thing. Why have we not done so?
Yeah. So this is actually pretty typical. We had a report to put out on the humanitarian situation in Gaza and what Israel was doing to try to make sure that people got the assistance they needed. And I had different assessments from different parts of the State Department, from other agencies that were involved, like USAID. My job is to sort through them, which I did, draw some conclusions from that, and we put out our report, and we found that Israel needs.
He's like, yeah, we found a report, but then we also found out, that doesn't correspond to our best interest here, okay? Because we are still interested in giving Israel unlimited weapons. So we decided to just omit that. And also lie to Congress, by the way. Like, that's his own department being like, hey, man, this is fucked up. Like, it's getting a little bit out of control, don't you think? And he's like, yeah, shut the fuck up. That's what's going on here. Is this sort of pushback on CBS Mornings a good sign? Yeah, if they keep up this pushback, even at the end of this interview or tomorrow or the day after, then yeah, it's a good sign because it means that things are changing. If they simply ask this question and then let him get away with this like wishy-washy bullshit answer, especially when you look at the time remaining in this fucking video, I suspect that they do let him get away with this, and then never cover this story ever again, then yeah, no, they're complacent and they don't give a fuck, and they just did their due diligence to maintain a veneer of credibility. They have to still maintain an air of credibility so that they can continue doing propaganda. Remember that. This is that part. This is the unique part. This is the unceremonious, like every now and then when you go, hold on, what the fuck is the media saying? That's crazy. Let's hear it. Let's hear it one more time. What her question was directly about the ProPublica article that showed that U.S. aid and the State Department, its own internal investigations, created a memo, 17 pages long, that showed Anthony Blinken, without a shred of doubt, that Israel was violating international human rights laws, and therefore weapons transfers would be threatened, okay? Because it's in direct contravention with American laws on top of the Geneva Convention and international human rights laws, okay? Anthony Blinken recognizing that memo and reading that memo and then continuing to defend continuing to defend weapons transfers to Israel's means that he is in violation. He is a war criminal himself. And in a just world, he would be going to jail. That is the reality. But of course, it's not going to happen.
What Israel was doing to try to make sure that people got the assistance they needed. And I had different assessments from different parts of the State Department, from other agencies that were involved, like USAID. My job is to sort through them, which I did, draw some conclusions from that, and we put out our report. And we found that Israel needed to do a better job on the humanitarian assistance. We've seen improvements since then. It's still not sufficient.
Secretary Blinken, the man in the arena, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you. Thanks.
Wow. So I guess they didn't. Okay, got it. So I guess there is no follow-up. Got it. Okay, here is, let's hear what Savannah Guthrie said to Anthony Blinken. He's doing the rounds right now after this report came out in an effort to do some propaganda, to do some counter-propaganda.
Right now in the Middle East, as you well know, a massive bombardment by Israel into the north, into Hezbollah territory. The Israeli theory here is escalate to de-escalate. In fact, just in essence, hit Hezbollah so hard they're forced to the negotiating table. Put simply, does the U.S. support this escalation strategy by Israel?
Well, first, Israel has a real and legitimate problem, because here's what happened. After the horrific events of October 7th by Hamas in Israel, in the south, Hezbollah from Lebanon joined in and started firing rockets into Israel. People who lived in northern Israel had to evacuate their homes. Villages were destroyed, homes were destroyed. 70,000 Israelis were forced from their homes. And Israel started firing back. You had a tit for tat going back and forth. People in southern Lebanon had to leave their homes too. And what everyone wants is to have a secure environment in which people can simply return home. Kids can go back to school. That's what Israel's after. So the best way to get that is not through war, not through escalation. It would be through a diplomatic agreement that has forces pulled back from the border, create a secure environment, people return home. That's what we're driving toward, because while there's a very legitimate issue here, we don't think that war is the solution.
Well, fair enough. Israel is not listening to that. In fact, the U.S. Defense Secretary on Sunday told his Israeli counterpart to give time for diplomacy to work. And on Monday, this Israeli bombardment was the most serious, deadliest day in Lebanon since 2006. Yeah, well, so Israel is not listening to the U.S. Why not?
What we're focused on now, including with many partners here in New York at the UN General Assembly, the Arab world, Europeans and others, is a plan to de-escalate and, again, to make sure that people can go back to their homes. But if there were to be...
Yeah, de-escalate through escalations. De-escalation through escalation. That's just how it goes. Wait, isn't this what they say Hamas did on October 7? Hit so hard they listened to you? No, there is no look, Israel good, Hamas bad. Israel good, Palestinian bad. Israel good, Lebanon bad. Israel good, Iran bad. That's it. Israel does it, it's good. Anyone else that retaliates against it is bad, okay? Understand that, and you will understand a lot of what this commentary revolves around. That's it. That's just simply it, okay? There is no moral consistency here. There is no intellectual curiosity here. That is it, okay? They are trying to goad any regional actor they're trying to goad any regional actor to fucking retaliate so they can bring the United States in to defend Israel directly, so they can have a just cause, a righteous cause for vengeance once again. Because the October 7 propaganda is no longer hitting as hard after you have fucking annihilated an entire Palestinian population and displaced millions of fucking civilians. So obviously, they need like another October 7 to just really fucking kick it into high gear. Hamas poked the bear, which was a really weird move. Brother, I need you to understand something, okay? These are people who are trapped in an open-air prison with no way out of it, okay? That's it. Saying that Hamas simply poked the bear is so stupid because you are basically behaving as though Israel itself is not a Western aligned nation that requires steady support from the American government and unlimited fucking resource from the American government to prosecute its genocide, okay? And is a force of, is just like a, it's not comprised of people. It's just like a natural, a naturally occurring phenomenon. It's not, that's not correct. In the bear analogy, if Israel is the bear, okay, that bear is already swiping at every fucking Palestinian every goddamn day. It's sitting on top of the Palestinians. It's swiping at the Palestinians. And the moment that a Palestinian pushes back, you turn around and you say, well, they poked the bear. Sorry. But it also comes with the recognition that Israel is an irrational actor in this process. So you're not making the argument that you think you're making that defends is defensive of Israel's posture here. Okay? So yes, you're not wrong. Israel is behaving in an irrational manner, like a bear. When a bear kills humans, that bear must be put down. When a bear ages in the taste of human flesh, that bear has to be put down. Otherwise, it will strike humans again. So there you have your analogy. Acting like the Gaza coast got struck by the Hurricane Israel. Yes, ridiculous. I don't think that's actually true in nature. It absolutely is true in nature. What are you talking about?
Mr. President, you spoke at the UN General Assembly.
So you promoted to put the Israelis down? My friend, I don't think you understand a single damn thing. And I don't think you understand or are interested in understanding a single damn thing. You're just here to purposefully misunderstand exactly what I'm saying in an effort to just like get a silly little gotcha. Israel is a state, okay? Israel is not a human being, nor is it actually a bear. It is comprised of human beings that are behaving in an irrational manner. My advocacy is not to nuke Tel Aviv, if that's what you're trying to imply here. Because guess what? I'm not like Israel, okay? I do value human rights. Unlike the nation state that is currently engaging in a genocide that is an apartheid state on a good day that you are trying to defend, I do value human rights.
Assembly yesterday as the Middle East feels like a powder keg. Israel and Hamas's war rages on. Now it seems to have expanded to Hezbollah in the north. How real is an all-out war in the Middle East, and is a ceasefire still in reach? And would you require all hostages to be released alive in order to have a ceasefire?
The answer is part of the ceasefire would be the exchange of those hostages, number one. Number two, an all-out war is possible, but I think there's also the opportunity, or still in play, to have a settlement that could fundamentally change the whole region. Mm-hmm. And look, one of the things that I found is the Arab world very much wants to have a settlement because they know what it does for them. They're willing to make arrangements with Israel and alliances with Israel if Israel changes some policies. And I've known Bibi Netanyahu.
Yeah. Israel seems to have expanded its war into Gaza. Who could have foreseen this? Who could have seen this coming? Or not into Gaza, sorry, into Lebanon. It just naturally occurred. Once again, everything that Israel does is a natural occurrence.
For a long, long time. And I'm a very strong supporter of Israel. I make no bones about it. I said years ago I was a Zionist. All a Zionist means is that there needs to be an Israel. And the fact is, though, that Bibi has a picture I signed for him when he was a young member of the embassy here in the United States.
An asset for American intelligence as well as Israeli intelligence, just so you understand.
And it was an 8x10 picture he asked me to sign. I went, Bibi, I love you, but don't agree with the damn thing you say or do, Joe.
Yeah.
And I do, and he's right. I don't agree with his position. There needs to be a two-state solution. Ultimately, it needs to happen. There's a way to do it, and we have a possibility. I don't want to exaggerate it, but a possibility if we can deal with a ceasefire.
Why do you love him then? That makes no sense, dude. When did your community become so pro-Islamic terrorist? The last year really has changed your people. They think so black and white and hateful now, lol. October 7. I love you, mate, but why are you genuinely a defender of jihad? Your chat is completely brain rotted on this topic. It's so black and white to them because of your framing in defense of jihad. They look at this as black and white when it's 2,000 years of nuance. Damn, this is a good speech. Do I like Bibi now? How is he on trans rights, lol? I don't know if you understand this, but Saint Matriarch, a community returner post October 7, I have been a firm and committed defender of human rights for many, many years prior to you coming into this community. Okay? My analysis does not change due to some random social conditioning that directly contradicts that when it comes to Israel. For example, you said this community believes in black and white dynamics. The only black and white is at the top of the hour when there's a 3-minute ad break. Okay? You're screwed if you are not subscribed. If you're subscribed, however, you won't see the 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour. I'm going to return back to this chatter and talk about some of their opinions in a second. Okay? Because there's a lot of people like this. There's a lot of people who believe these things where they're like, oh, dude, mate, you're supporting jihad. Okay? Here's the 3-minute ad break now. That's the real jihad, aka struggle against the 3-minute ad break, is subscribing. The black and white thinking in this circumstance comes from you, my friend. You automatically assume this is like jihad, which is, I suspect, not the true understanding of jihad, but instead simply a Western understanding. It means like, you know, Allahu Akbar, boom, explosion, that type of shit, right? That is black and white. You are the one who is engaging in black and white understandings on this issue. Okay? You see Muslim and you're conditioned into believing that like these are not people who might have a genuine interest in emancipation. You see Muslim and you see, I'm afraid. You see a Muslim person and you think, oh, this person wants to destroy the Western world. I hope that one day you can overcome these bigoted points of view. I doubt it, but I hope you can overcome it one day. The Gaza thing is a chronically online tanky thing. Most Americans won't sacrifice their country for some Islamic jihadi solidarity. Okay? It's sad. It's sad to see someone who seemingly has a lot of progressive opinions, because you can't be in this community and be a supporter since 2022 if you don't have a lot of progressive opinions. But when it comes down to Israel, you automatically go against all of those opinions. Even the usage of your word tanky means you're chronically online. There are plenty of studies conducted on the matter in terms of like the way Americans analyze the situation. And you're wrong, actually. The broad majority of American society considers what Israel is doing to be wrong. The broad majority of American society wants Israel to stop pummeling Gaza. Okay? It's a perfectly understandable desire from many people. They see what is going on. They know right from wrong. To add insult to injury, even selfish Americans recognize that unlimited billions of dollars of weapons going to Israel so they can continue on this bloody conquest is perhaps not the best idea. Okay? I'm trying to be as nice as possible. I'm not. Zionists can get fucked too. I banter a lot on Twitch with just to fuck with people. Whoa, you can't pick on me when I'm not paying attention. When did your community become so pro-Islamic terrorist is a loaded statement. A loaded statement that shows what your perspective is, what framework you're operating on. That framework is automatically any kind of Muslim person that seeks to uphold their national sovereignty, i.e. Lebanon, or any kind of Muslim person that says, hey man, can you please stop killing us? And asks over and over again for 78 years and then retaliates in kind is automatically in the wrong. You are the one who is engaging in black and white thinking here. Okay? And I wish that you wouldn't do that. I don't know what's going on with your account. I can't hear you, but I'll watch it later. I'm actually genuinely interested in your defense of Islam. I still low-key think you work for the Turkish CIA. Yes, dude, because I'm a Muslim, right? That's the reason, right? I'm secretly working for the Turkish CIA. I'm a dual agent here with a different interest in, blowing up American public discourse. Dog, come on. Like, there is no world in which this level of fucking bigotry would be tolerated for anyone else, okay? And I don't tolerate it for anyone else. You are masquerading pure, vile bigotry as intellectual thought because you have been hugboxed into believing that your perspective is the normal one. Okay? It's incredibly fucking stupid. And it also demonstrates a clear lack of knowledge. The Turkish CIA is called Milli İstihbarat Teşkilatı, which is MIT. Okay? The Turkish CIA was built by the American CIA. If I was in any way, shape, or form affiliated with a Turkish espionage agency, I would be pro-Israel, as is the State Department's current position. I would also be able to go back to Turkey freely, as I currently cannot. It's really weird how much of the opinions that people have come from just anti-critical thinking, just genuine reactionary bile. You're 2 hours late to what? It's just shocking. Like how much you have to put up with on a daily fucking basis if you're, pro-Palestinian. God forbid you're Muslim on top of that. You know what I mean? Oh, I'm just trolling, mate. Fun troll, dude. Can I ask a simple question? Would you rather live in a world dominated by Gaza and Palestinian politics and societal structure or USA-Israel politics and societal structure? This is a silly question because the Gaza and Palestinian politics and societal structure is one of emancipation purely. That's it. You do not know what a free Palestine would look like. You have no understanding of what a free Palestine would look like. Your only understanding is a Palestine that has been dominated completely by the United States and Israel. Okay? This is also slight Islamophobia to just be like, dude, you want these barbaric Arabs to rule over you with their barbaric opinions? Many of these nations that have been dominated by American imperialism, Western imperialism in general, prior to said dominance, actually had thriving societies. An example you can use is one nation that wasn't dominated by American imperialism, or at least found itself to be a servile role. Found itself in a servile role. Turkey. Look at the development in Turkey versus the development in countries like Iran. A lot of countries were not allowed to thrive deliberately. Why did you tell CNN you maybe will vote for Kamala? Genocide not enough for you to hop off the bandwagon? Jank won't let you vote third party. You're reactionary towards leftist third party candidates. I love the charlatans in the chat when I'm getting like the silliest Islamophobic shit, like Islamophobic bile being spewed in my direction as I'm in defense of Palestine, openly communicating what Israel is doing as genocidal. There's still a guy who's like a fucking third party charlatan being like, well, you're reactionary against third parties. Sorry, Iowan chatter. I'm sorry that I'm not sufficiently in the tank for Jill Stein. Okay, have fun with that. What I said to CNN pre-DNC was my position at the time, and it's still my position. Okay, that's even better. I'm from Texas. Okay. I love getting told by Texan white guys in the midst of people calling me a fucking Islamist fundamentalist that, like, I'm not sufficiently radical enough during my coverage of fucking, the genocide, the ongoing genocide and occupation of Palestine, as Israel also is opening up a new flank of war in Lebanon. Thank you, Texan guy, for telling me what's what. Thank you for your revolutionary sentiment that you expressed in a Twitch chat. Like a chatter literally just went, "Oh, why do you want global jihad to be the rule of law as opposed to beautiful Western civilization?" And a Texan chatter is like, "Man, you are not pro Jill Stein, so I'm done with you." Okay. Thank you for educating me. I will reconsider. It does not matter who is demanding emancipation for the Palestinians. It doesn't matter what their domestic affairs look like. Okay? It does not matter. The position holds for Ukraine as well. This is precisely the reason why, since day one, since the unjustifiable occupation of Ukraine occurred, I have said that Ukraine is in the right for demanding emancipation from Russian invasion. Doesn't matter if there were Nazis in the Azov battalion. Ultimately, they are still in the right for this worthy cause. Okay? No one deserves to be dominated by a larger military power. It is ridiculous. And the same goes for the Palestinian population. Using the conditions of colonial occupation, settler colonial occupation, to imply that these people are barbaric is no different than saying black people are inferior in the United States of America. It is two different sides of the same white supremacist coin. 1350 much? Black people are violent and barbaric. That's why they need to be put down by the police force. Excuse me. They deserve it. This is why there is a direct contradiction among progressives who are progressive except for Palestine. Okay? You are, in terms of your foreign policy understanding, applying the exact same standards that white supremacists here in the United States of America apply to black people and brown people, people that are dominated by white supremacist structures. And I think that direct contradiction is exactly what creates a unique opportunity for radicalization in the right direction, okay? Because of that, so many people that leave the community after October 7 because they're like, this guy is fucking promoting jihadist terrorists, then find themselves inevitably in the throes of a community built by a guy who has written a manifesto for saying the N-word as a white guy. That's why they find themselves changing their entire worldview, because their association with real progressive politics was simply limited. It wasn't real. It wasn't a real moral compass that was guiding their decision making. It was simply a need to want to be a part of a group, an in-group, and feel loved and feel, feel like they are cool. This is why reactionary ideology is very dangerous, because once you scratch that itch and once you start plugging holes with bigotry instead of critical thinking, you find yourself doing that in a lot of other areas. It starts off with one issue that you have a genuine, unexamined fear over, a fear that is not born out of like real issues, but instead social conditioning for the most part. It starts off with you thinking maybe the Venezuelan migrant gangs have overtaken an apartment in Aurora, Colorado. And then before you know it, you're like, yeah, maybe trans people are fucking weird, actually, and gross, and are cheating, and simply just want to win, I don't know, the high school swim meet. And that's why they're faking being trans. And before you know it, you have adopted so many right-wing positions that you were a shell of what you once were. In a lot of ways, we looked at and laughed at that one charm hole guy, right? The MAGA communist. He just took a separate journey into reactionary thinking. But that, in many respects, is no different than the random person who used to be a member of this community but now thinks I am promoting Islamic fundamentalism and jihad. It's no different. You just found a different community, and you now also maintain reactionary points of view. Charm hole. I was looking for a more substantial answer than just, oh, war crimes, people died. Governments operate this way all over the world. Israel is not unique in this manner. This is related to the pager attacks, by the way. Yeah, that's just might is right. By the way, atavistico is a fucking awesome name for the argument that you're presenting. Mate Feed Art, thank you for the 100 community gift of subs, by the way. My man, I think that's it's not a name that favors your position, by the way. You are engaging in atavistic sentiment. Might is right. everybody does war crimes, so who cares, is not exactly a position that I hold and is a position that I think should manifest in this community. Okay? Slavery comes to mind as an immediate counter to this. Everyone used to practice slavery. Let's just do slavery. Who cares? Might is right after all, right? My previous comment was more directed towards you. That one was for a chatter. Can you explain why the pager attack should be considered a negative action by the Israeli state? I admittedly know nothing of Hezbollah or what the background of this conflict is outside of some minor research on Israel-Palestine since October 7. Obviously, the pager attacks did lead to civilian casualties, but is this not preferable to carpet bombing and more indiscriminate attacks? Well, you don't even have to make that assessment any longer because Israel also did engage in carpet bombings as of 3 days ago. But let's say we are in a world where that didn't happen and Israel simply did the act of terror. I would urge you to try to understand, or at least do a little bit of reading from the United Nations Office of Human Rights report, or any number of different prosecutors that have prosecuted war crimes both successfully and are knowledgeable on the matter as to why they consider the pager attacks to be an act of terror. Even Leon Panetta, the former CIA director. Leon Panetta is not exactly an ally of mine in the way that he views the world, but even Leon Panetta, the chief terrorist, as the former director of the CIA, knows a terror attack when he sees one, right? Infiltrating the logistics chain, infiltrating the logistics supply chain of a device that is more often than not utilized by a civilian population, that is in use inside of emergency rooms, inside of hospitals, okay? And booby trapping it is multiple different war crimes. Okay, attacking enemy combatants that are not in combat would also be a war crime. Attacking enemy combatants that are not in combat, that are living inside civilian populations, also a war crime. Booby trapping a civilian communications device is also a war crime. It's a litany of different war crimes added on to one another with the intent and purpose of directly creating psychological harm upon a civilian population. That is terror. Terrorism is technically a socio-political designation that we apply to non-state actors in an effort to deny them their habeas corpus, right? Their human rights laws, or their right to due process, for example. But there is something behind the designation of terrorism. And if you are looking for the dictionary designation of terrorism, what Israel did is a textbook definition of that reality. Saying that, and this line of thinking also ultimately opens you up to even further and further reactionary sentiment. For example, I'll give you another example of this, okay? To say, well, Israel's terror attacks are more targeted than carpet bombing Lebanon. Yes, they were more targeted. Far less civilian casualties occurred. Not casualties, because 3,000 civilian casualties is more than the carpet bombing that Israel engaged in. Far less civilian deaths occurred in this supposedly targeted terror strike than what Israel did do, right? Which is carpet bomb Lebanon, killing 500 plus. Now, this exact same principle could be applied to even carpet bombing Lebanon, because you could turn around and say, well, don't you think that carpet bombing Lebanon is far more targeted than nuking Lebanon? Israel has nukes. They could technically use them on Lebanon. Don't you think that carpet bombing Lebanon is far more humane than just all-out nuking Lebanon? Do you understand what's wrong with this argument? When you open yourself up to justify Israeli atrocities against the sovereign state and its civilian population, okay, and then use a far worse weapon that they could potentially use in this conflict as a way to justify this act of terror, you open up the door to many far greater acts of terror. As a matter of fact, Israel already has done the far greater acts of terror since, the terrorism that occurred in terms of the pager bombings. I hope that this was sufficient, clear, and coherent, concise. I hope you understand my position now. Atavistico.
Fire in Lebanon, that it can move into dealing with the West Bank. But we also have Gaza to deal with.
Yes.
And so, but it's possible, and I'm using every bit of energy I have with my team, and from the Defense Department, you know it well, to get this done. There's a desire to
now to an NBC
see change. I mean, in the region.
And peace.
And well, peace is exactly right. But one of the things is that I'll end this by saying There's certain inflection points in history where what happens in the very near term sets the course for the world for the next 6 or 7 decades.
Oh, God.
We're at one of those places. We have a chance to really, for example, we put NATO together. You know it well.
We did
two
NATO.
countries to NATO. Stop Putin. Now, you know, Trump says if he gets a...
Damn, this guy, dude, I can't wait to write this guy in, okay, come November. He is the bold, charismatic leadership that we need right now, okay? He's the guy. He's my guy.
Elected, he wants to get the hell out of NATO. I've been able to put together what they call the Quad in the South Pacific in that area to increase. We have a chance to reorder the world in a way that is not Shangri-La, but it is real. Fundamental changes to reflect the changes that are taking place now. And look what's happening with just what we're doing with climate. And so there's so many things that are so many opportunities. And I know, you know, I had that craniotomy because I had an aneurysm years ago. And the doctor was trying to explain to me whether it was they're generic or congenital. And I said, I don't care. We'll just take care of it. We're okay. He looked at me and said, you know what your problem is, Senator? I said, no. I said, you're a congenital optimist. Well, I am, because there's nothing America's ever worked on.
I want to ask
we
you.
haven't gotten done.
That's true.
Nothing.
So, in January, you're leaving Washington after 50 years of public service. How? You've been the best. How do you want the Biden administration remembered, and how do you want Joe Biden, the man, remembered?
You know, when I got elected when I was 29 years old, you have to be 30 to be sworn in. Everybody thought there must be some secret in Delaware. Did I have some secret? I said, yeah. Have you figured out what's worth losing over? Yeah. Have you figured out what's worth losing over? Because if you haven't figured that out, you should be another business. There's so many things that are worth losing over if you got to keep trying. And what I want to remember for is being honest in what I've done, straight up, and I think I used to drive Barack crazy. Every morning we meet at 9 o'clock for 8 years, and then we end the day together. And all the sayings, and I'd say to him, Barack, remember, all politics is personal, including international. You build relationships.
That finger point is so funny, dude. Look at this.
Including international.
He thinks he's so dope. I mean, people fucking glaze him too, so... Thanks for answering. I just don't see much of a positive action by leaders on any side of the conflict to create a reasonable solution for Palestinians or Israelis. I was more concerned if you found Hezbollah worth defending, or if you were just coming down hard on the Israeli government for more escalating actions in this conflict. I do not care about the domestic affairs of Hezbollah, nor do I care about their Islamist positions on certain issues. I do believe that Hezbollah is, just like Hamas, a resistance group that was created out of the real need of purging Israel from the borders of Lebanon. This is how Hezbollah was created, and over time, it has formed into a cohesive, coherent political movement with its own political party that occupies space in the Lebanese parliament. This is precisely the reason why, despite the international terrorist designation for Hezbollah, they also have civil governance affairs in a way that is not dissimilar to Hamas, okay? No, that is not how they are made. Yes, no, sorry. I should have said Hezbollah was created out of unrelenting Jew hatred, okay? You're right. Hezbollah was created out of Hezbollah was created out of a need not against like combating Western imperialism, but instead hating Jewish people. You answered my message a few days ago on this. If Hezbollah is a terrorist group, then so are the ANC, Black Panthers, IRA, and Viet Cong. Yes, they are, by the way. They were and they still are considered terror groups by many. So it does not matter. Terrorism is simply a socio-political designation that the Western powers utilize and deploy against those who go against the hierarchy that Western powers are seeking to enforce. Hezbollah aren't good actions in Syria, their own domestic policy, but they're the only ones who could do anything about Israel because the Lebanese armed forces don't have the arms to fight Israel. Westerners don't want to think about why Hezbollah is the biggest party in Lebanon. I mean, I wouldn't say they're the biggest party. There's definitely a lot of haters in the Lebanese parliament against Hezbollah as well. But ultimately, it does not matter. Look at the reasoning for why they exist and look at their actions, okay, in terms of resisting Israeli occupation, in terms of being yet another vector of pressure placed upon the Israeli government that shows time and time again, has shown the world and anyone with eyes to see that they will not be fucking, they will never be, will never stand down, okay? They will just not stand down unless they are forced to stand down. I looked it up on ChatGPT, and apparently these Hezbollah guys were founded in 1982. Did anything else happen that year? Yeah. What happened?
You build relationships. It matters to build trust. It matters, it matters, it matters. And I just think the environment is such that we can get so much done, but we have to focus.
Nazis postured as though they were combating Judeo-Bolshevist terrorism. Yeah, I mean, that's why we... Listen, we aligned with the Nazis post-World War II and never really stopped our allegiance, and also basically did a lot of Nazi shit all around the globe, sometimes directly working with neo-Nazis. And right now, the modern iteration of that exact same ultra-nationalist movement, that ultra-nationalist fascist movement, can be seen in Israel. And we are defending it wholeheartedly.
We have to believe in ourselves again. And that's what I like most about Kamala. She believes in America. She believes in our capacity.
Immediate Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon, 1982.
She believes in who we are. And I don't know, I just, in terms of, I'm less concerned about what my legacy is. But although I'm leaving, you're stuck with me. I'm not going away. Because there's so many other things I want to do in terms of the Biden Institute of Penn on foreign policy, the Biden Institute in Delaware on domestic policy, to keep the things going that we started. And I think we can get them done.
Okay. I have to tell you, our thanks to you for coming and sitting with us.
Oh, come on.
You have been extraordinary for the country, and we are so proud to have had you at this table more than once, but to have you here at this table as the President of the United States. After
Okay, I'm skipping the rest of this shit. It's an older vid from last year.
I keep seeing people calling the situation in Israel-Palestine complex, and it's actually not that complex. The only complex thing about it is that it would inevitably end in an ethnic genocide that would directly benefit the interests of the United States in the Middle East. So instead of openly supporting genocide, a lot of American politicians are calling it complex instead to confuse you. But don't be confused, because think about it. Israel has a membership status in the United Nations. They have international diplomatic authority and the 10th most powerful army in the world, whereas Palestine is internationally defined by several powerful organizations as a terrorist group. So it's illegal for them to have an army. It's illegal to provide them with armaments, and all the weapons that they do have were smuggled into the country.
Not only that, but also it's virtually illegal to do trade, like unrestricted trade with Palestine and Palestinians. Like there is no humanitarian aid that approaches Palestine that does not get controlled by Israel. Israel controls any matter of aid that goes into Gaza.
Country illegally. They don't have an army. And so they're calling it a war on terrorism. Okay, but did you know, fun fact, that there's no functioning definition internationally for terrorism? That definition does not exist. So that basically makes it legal for Israel to go in, shoot whoever they want, not just armed militants, and then define those dead people as terrorists later. It's not a war. A war requires two armies. It's not that complex.
Yeah. Anyway, not good. Hosts react to Biden's view appearance. Let's see. Let's take a look at what the real truth tellers of America have to say. Oh, he was pressed by Leon Panetta's assertion that the pager attacks on Lebanon are a form of terrorism. Hezbollah. This is what he said.
Attack where Hezbollah. Can I ask you about that pagers attack where Hezbollah members were the targets, and they're literally in their hands, their pagers exploded. Some see this as a technological coup and an ingenious move by Israel. Others, including John Brennan, former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, who you know well, saying it's a form of terrorism and it went too far. Where do you come down on it?
Look, we've got to start with the proposition that Hezbollah is a terrorist organization.
No question.
Oh, so you can do terrorism to the terrorist organization. We decided that they're a terrorist organization, so we can do whatever we want. But let's just fucking go in there, nuke it, be done with it for once. You know what I mean? Just, we said they're the bad guys. What the fuck do you want? They're bad. They're the bad guys. Israel, good guys. They're the bad guys. You can do any amount of bad things to the bad guys that we've declared are the bad guys, okay?
So designated by the United States. And the reality is, Israel left southern Lebanon, had been occupying southern Lebanon for 15 years.
Oh, Israel left southern Lebanon. Dude. I didn't fucking realize, like, they're so gracious and so nice for leaving southern Lebanon. Man, that's cool.
It left in 2000. And all of these militia that existed there were supposed to put down their weapons. Hezbollah didn't do it. And then repeatedly.
I wonder why, dude. I wonder why they didn't. I wonder why. You're in the process. First of all, they kicked them out. Secondly, you are quite literally describing why they should not have put their weapons down. Why would any sovereign nation put their goddamn weapons down when they're literally firmly planted next to a country that is routinely striking everyone around it? Like, no sovereign nation is supposed to be forced to heal, okay? Especially after they successfully purged enemy combatants from their fucking sovereign territory that they own, okay? That they belong to. That's ridiculous. This makes no sense. Did Israel dismantle their military after leaving Lebanon? Of course not, because they had to use it.
In the time after that, it attacked and posed a threat to people living in northern Israel. So it's very legitimate that Israel do something about Hezbollah.
No question about it.
The only question is, what's the best way to do it?
Oh, and the tactic.
And what are the best tactics? And those are things that we're always discussing with them. But right now, our main challenge is preventing a broader war, one that actually won't solve the challenge that Israel has. And by the way, the Lebanese.
Yeah, it's like saying Ukraine has to put their guns down if Russia leaves, okay? That is not a position I would ever advocate for, okay? NATO aside, it would be ridiculous to be like, all right, Ukraine, you can no longer have a standing military because Russia left the country. Like, that would be ridiculous. That's a ridiculous fucking argument, okay? Completely ridiculous argument. And if someone suggested that, you'd be like, you're a fucking, what are you, Tim Pool? Like, you're a fucking Russian op, okay?
Lebanese have, because they want to get their people back to their homes in southern Lebanon, too. We want that, too.
In fairness, you didn't answer whether or not you approved of this particular tactic.
Look, you're always looking at what someone is doing, trying to figure out what the second or third order consequences may be. Does it open up a whole new Pandora?
I like that the immediate morality of, like, our ally doing a gross, egregious act of terror that former State Department administrators have recognized as such is not even called the question here. He's talking about the secondary consequences of, like, what if this happens to us now? Like, yeah, that's the worst aspect of this, you think? Like, the worst aspect of this is that, like, maybe this might happen to us too, and that's a big problem for me? What a psycho. What a fucking psychopathic argument to make, dude. Yeah, it's only bad. It's only bad when it's blowback. It's good when we're blowing, okay? But when it blows back on us, then it's very bad. Ooh, who could have thought? Speaking of blowback, I will have the Blowback Podcast boys on in 20 minutes.
Pandora's box, it is something we're looking at.
Oh, fucking just the depravity, dude. The immorality. Holy shit. I mean, there's no defense. I don't know. I don't know what else to say, dude. Ralph Nader. Weeks ago, 45 American doctors and nurses back from Gaza's horrors wrote a detailed footnoted plea to Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden to stop the slaughter and get adequate humanitarian aid to 2 million dying, sick, and injured civilian Palestinians in Gaza. They received some media, but were totally ignored by the Bidens and their genocidal, unconditional, American taxpayer-funded backing of the war criminal Netanyahu, who was despised by 3 out of 4 Israelis. Biden talks a good game, but he walks a deadly trek in the annals of Holocaust histories across the globe. Ralph Nader, they will never make me hate you, my goat. All right. Any news about Lebanese retaliation? The way I look at it, it currently seems like, one, Iran at UN is saying, all right, is it time now? We have shown restraint time and time again. Hezbollah, on the other hand, is saying, listen, come and take it. Come into our borders, amass your troops, and try to do a ground invasion. See what the fuck happens. We have purged you from our ranks once. We will do it again. So now, as is the case usually in the Middle Eastern conflict, okay, it is entirely in the hands of Israel. If Israel chooses to amass ground troops and prep for a military invasion of Lebanon, well, we'll see what happens. Okay, that's it. I'm writing in Nader. I'm writing in Biden for NATO. Had Ralph Nader thrown his support behind Al Gore in 2000, 1 million Iraqis would still be alive. Yeah, dude, Ralph Nader is the reason why Al Gore lost, even though Al Gore literally won and the Republicans directly stole the election from him. Yeah. I like that people still do that. Like, I like that people still will go back in time and just be like, nah. Using 1 million Iraqis to shit on the left is hilarious. Yeah. This will never change, by the way. People are going to be saying that in 20 years about Hillary, huh? I mean, they're already saying that, and they will never stop saying that. Would Al Gore have invaded the Middle East? I don't know. Probably. I think that America's endless thirst for baby blood in the global south is insatiable. I don't think that like a singular force can stop that. Interception of large missile fire towards Tel Aviv was a big thing. Also, I think a missile hit spot on the invasion side. It seems like it's probably going to happen. Herzi Halevi said they're preparing for a ground invasion and 2 more reservist brigades are being mobilized to the north. Same with the 98th Division, which was responsible for so many horrors in Gaza. Only 2 divisions left in Gaza. As far as do I think the U.S. would send troops if there was a ground invasion? I think U.S. is still providing like material support, surveillance support to the Israeli military at the time, and it is entirely dependent on how badly the diaper brigade gets their shit pushed in if they do invade southern Lebanon. But I do think that if they're getting their absolute shit blown up, which is so surprising, once again, like, I don't know what the fuck they're thinking, because even as a strategic decision, I am not a military commander or a military expert at all, but I have looked at the history. I have seen the way that the Israeli military has been completely incompetent in even dealing with its own concentration camp, its own open air prison. Okay? If they cannot deal with Hamas in fucking Gaza, how are they expected to, after all of the casualties that they incurred in fucking Gaza, how are they supposed to take that military that has already taken a fucking L in Gaza and move them against a significantly better equipped, significantly better organized, and significantly more experienced standing military like Hezbollah? It makes no sense. There's a real risk of Israel killing U.S. troops if they are deployed, even if the U.S. is only doing evacuation. Yes. They will likely give air support with airstrikes and cruise missiles long before troops on the ground. Dead American soldiers would apply a lot of political pressure on Biden and probably guarantee Trump the election. I mean, yeah, I've been saying that. Welcome. Yes, that is precisely what I'm saying. I think that's also partially a calculation that Benjamin Netanyahu is making. Hezbollah whips up a retaliation that is costly. Israel screams bloody murder, goes into Lebanon, and then American troops are also there to defend Israeli troops. Foreign policy is never the most prescient issue in elections until it's the only issue that guides elections. 2 things that I have repeated from the beginning of October 7, from the beginning of this bloody campaign that Israel is conducting. I said, this is the most boring election cycle when it was a rerun of 2020 with 2 old men running against one another, but it has the capacity to become the most interesting election cycle. I was right. That already happened. The second thing that I kept saying was foreign policy is never the top of mind issue in elections until it's the only issue in American elections. Benjamin Netanyahu has already openly communicated that he will not have any peace talks for the next 40 days. Something to consider. Are the Democrats willing to give Trump the win for Netanyahu Israel? Why are they like this? Why your predictions are never good things? I mean, because I'm looking at how America has operated throughout history and how America continues to operate now, and nothing good is coming out of it.
President Biden appearing on The View just about an hour ago. He was directly asked about the attempts on Donald Trump's life. Here's how President Biden responded.
He still jokes about Paul Pelosi nearly being beaten to death. He thinks that's funny.
We'll see what happens, but remember that historically the U.S. was less adamant to veto UNSC calls for a ceasefire in Lebanon. Everyone knows Resolution 1701 that stopped the war in 2006, but there was also UNSC 425 in 1978, which forced Israeli withdrawal after the first invasion. Who knows, though? Maybe this administration will be more hawkish than Bush. This administration has been more hawkish than Bush. George W. Bush was a fucking idiot, and in all of that stupidity thought that he could, like, prop up Fatah as in the leadership structure for Palestinians and orchestrated a coup. That coup failed, literally leading to Hamas gaining complete control over Gaza. But all of that means that he was still attempting, in his own stupid fucking way, some kind of like exercise of sovereignty for the Palestinian population. Ironic to say that because it was directly a violation of Palestinian sovereignty, because he didn't even listen to his own fucking people being like, this is not the right time for elections. If you do this election now, we will lose. And then they did. But if I were to analyze this, yes, I think that the Biden administration on Israel is literally more hawkish than the George W. Bush administration was on Israel. Make no mistake. I'm not talking about like the global war on terror. I'm specifically talking about Palestine. Okay, nothing else. I think I still maintain the position that the Bush administration was a genuine blight on the entire world, and it was, in my estimation, the actual crossing of the Rubicon moment for the final stage of American empire. Like George W. Bush and his actions, the actions of the Bush administration are far more consequential for American history and the entire history of the world than even Donald Trump ever was. George W. Bush and his administration is worse than the Trump administration. This is a position that I've maintained throughout the 4 years of the Trump administration. But as far as, and I still stand by that. Okay. As you said once, we are living in the smoldering ashes of Bush's choices. I mean, yeah, you could even point to fucking Georgia and Ukraine currently and still find a way to blame George W. Bush for that. He did that shit on his way out. Having said that, however, I mean, the Bush administration was far more consequential domestically, far more consequential in foreign policy, far more consequential in destabilizing the entire fucking global South with its war on terror, destabilizing Europe. Also, as a direct consequence of the war on terror, which every administration after George W. Bush continued, okay, gladly continued, excitedly continued, even if they ran against the war on terror narrative like Barack Obama did, you know, doing the troop surge and greatly accelerating that. And so did Trump, obviously accelerating Barack Obama's drone warfare by increasing the intensity of drone strikes by 400%, which was ridiculous when compared to Barack Obama, who was considered the drone king. And Joe Biden has also done the exact same thing and greatly escalated the sanctions regime that Trump also really kicked into high gear. Every step of the way, regardless of whether hands were changed, regardless of whether the party changed, the foreign policy bipartisan consensus never did, and we just kept making things worse. Kept making things worse and worse and worse. Okay? And in terms of that, it is shocking to admit this, but yes, I do think that Joe Biden is more hawkish than virtually every other president in terms of Israel, in terms of Gaza. In 2021, he had a genuinely different attitude, telling Israel to rein it in and stopping Israel's further escalations with one singular phone call. But post October 7, that restraint was nowhere to be found. And that restraint is doing more damage to American soft power capabilities than Trump ever could have by being like, I'm going to do NATO, I'm going to end NATO, or whatever the fuck Trump says. Okay?
Let's see what else. He hinted that the Second Amendment people could do something against Hillary Clinton. And he's calling for a televised military tribunal for Liz Cheney. These are his past statements and ideas. He's blamed now. But now he's blaming rhetoric from you that you inspired these 2 assassination attempts. After all of the calls for violence, you know, take them out, all the rest of it, you know what it is. Don't you think that that is just unbelievable? And what do you say to that?
Well, I think he is the most unusual. Look, when I ran, I said I was running, one of the first major speeches I made was for Independence Hall about democracy. That democracy is at stake.
And to restore the soul of this country.
Yes, and look, Trump is,
Careful.
there's not a lot of social redeeming value there.
No, you think right.
But here's the thing. He really does not believe in democracy and the guardrails that our system is set up for the abuse of power.
Charles, the news cycle today is about the assassination report in Iran threatening to assassinate Trump. And he goes on to say that Trump has no redeeming social value and doesn't believe in democracy.
President Biden has spent his entire time in the White House going off on 50% of this country. He hates MAGA Republicans. Let's be honest about this. The vitriol.
Bro, this fit is so unacceptable. It's the most unacceptable fit I've ever seen on Fox News, and that's saying something. It's so bad that I didn't even notice the fucking ugly ass leather jacket that she's wearing on top of this green dress, which would have been fine on its own. Okay? God damn, dude. That is the most unacceptable thing. That is crazy, bro. Down to the fucking socks and the shoes. Like, you tried to do something there and you fucking literally failed spectacularly. You do not have that shit on, dude.
Every time he opened his mouth, MAGA Republicans are such an extreme threat. The vitriolic anger and hatred from this president to half of this nation has been on full display, period. That is the bottom line. It's not even about President Trump. He hates anyone who ever voted for President Trump, and that's scary.
That was Mr. Unity, Emily.
Yeah, that's right. Mr. Unity, that continues after he said to put President Trump in the bullseye.
This is my favorite thing that they do when they switch positions and go from being like Joe Biden is sleepy and stupid and his brain is leaking out of his ear to like he's so scary. He's such a scary guy. Look at how scary his rhetoric is. That's my favorite when Republicans do that fake crying shit. It's awesome. I love it. I wish it was real. I wish Joe Biden was a scary guy.
You're absolutely
and said we're going to send every conservative to the mines, you know?
right, Charles. And this is someone whose rhetoric is frankly so below the office that he is privileged to hold. This is absolutely unacceptable. I will await his apology and accountability, for this rhetoric on the heels of
Good thing you're young.
I don't think anyone buys this. No matter how much they repeat this, like, I don't think this is going outside of like the immediate MAGA circles. Like, I cannot in good conscience, even if someone is like leaning towards voting for Trump, I don't ever foresee them going, yeah, it's really fucked up what Joe Biden is saying about Donald Trump. He's a really violent guy, and that's the reason why Trump was assassinated. Like, even people almost assassinated. I think even people that are leaning towards Trump probably like Trump for the silly fucking things that Trump says that are inherently violent. You know what I mean? This is piercing normie space at all. Yeah, this is not even a little bit. Biden is violent and abusive. What are you talking about? Yeah, dude. Yeah, he's violent and abusive towards his meat that he's punishing. Just like I'm violent and abusive at the top of the hour. Okay? When there's a 3-minute ad break coming for you, it's both violent and abusive. And if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. Okay? For $4.20 in the month of September, or for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. I am now going to be calling Brendan James and Noah Colwyn, the Blowback podcast boys. And if you want that wall-to-wall coverage, first we're going to talk about Israel, Palestine, Lebanon. We'll be getting into that, and then I'm going to make them react to simple history, life under the most evil communist regime, Khmer Rouge, because their latest show, their latest episode, or their latest coverage revolves around the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. So let's start that. Let's start that process now. Here's a 3-minute ad break. Boom. All right. Hello. Hello. Can you guys hear me? I can't hear you at all. But that. Oh, I can hear you, Brendan.
All right.
Noah.
You can't hear.
Oh, you are
very soft,
dude. What the heck?
but you can't hear me.
Yeah, I mean I can barely hear you. It is like
I
insanely
kind of like
quiet.
it this way. This isn't the worst setup actually going forward. If Noah's almost silent.
Damn, why? Does he chirp too much in the appearances that you guys have been making so far?
God, it's like murder. We barely have anyone 30 minutes into the interview because he just won't
What
shut
about
up.
now?
What? You're getting better.
It's getting a little bit better.
How's this?
Better.
Crank it up higher, Noah.
And what about this?
Oh, perfect.
There you go.
Boom. Welcome back to the show. The Blowback boys. They're in the building. Ready to let it rip. You guys have a new series that just came out. Let me run the trailer for that actually. Do you have that link?
Yeah.
Chat,
You drop
give me
it
the
in.
link. I found it. Let's get started with this first. Also,
Here was the situation. They were sending great numbers of troops into Cambodia, preparing for what is called the Tet Offensive of that year. We take this action not for the purpose of expanding the war in Cambodia, but for the purpose of ending the war in Vietnam. I do it again. I do it again. I do it again. It's just a dead country.
We're still fighting the Vietnam War, and if we have to use the Khmer Rouge as a pawn in that, we'll use them.
I do it again. I do it again. I do it again. I do it again. I do it again. I do it again.
some of the chatters are saying you guys gave Nixon and Kissinger too much aura.
Damn, this guy's good.